What's up everyone, OJ here. Welcome back to another video, and we have some shocking and breaking news for everyone out there. Nintendo has announced that they have unannounced games for 2020. I know, completely crazy idea, right? But no, all joking aside guys, Nintendo President Shuntaro Furukawa recently stated at an investors meeting that they do have unannounced games for 2020. Now, this is being brought up because if you look at the slate for games so far, there's not much announced. We have no idea about The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2. We have no idea about any future Mario Kart game. We have no idea about F-Zero or Kid Icarus or even Metroid. I mean, all of it is to be decided or just not announced at this point, or rumored, right? Even like the rumored Mario Galaxy and like Mario remakes and all of that, which I do think is coming. But in this video, we're going to discuss, of course, that Nintendo has games set for this year, what games could be coming out, and also what this means in terms of the CV pandemic and how it's affecting Nintendo's development cycle. So let's first start with that, because that's the reason why any of this is even happening, right? This is the reason why we probably don't have solid answers at this point. Nintendo has been working on games. Obviously, Nintendo's always working on games, and the fact that the Nintendo Switch is a massive sales success shows that they are going to continue working on games. They have a lot of different development studios. They have a lot of IP that they can draw from. Seriously, like, I don't really think that making games is the problem. The problem is that it's the work from home order, and I don't think in Nintendo's 30-year plus history of making home console and portable games that they've ever been forced to work from home outside of maybe just like a few times for a very short amount of time. This is the longest they've ever had to stay home to work, and it's obviously causing issues for them in terms of meetings and development and getting things together. Just the logistics side of things isn't working when you've been doing one thing, or you've been doing something for one way for so long that all of a sudden you have to switch it up. It definitely creates problems, and it can also create leaks, right? People can create issues with that working from home, because, you know, Nintendo's a super secretive company and they don't want anything to get out too early. So obviously it's causing quite a number of issues for Nintendo, but they still have games slated, right? They just don't know, because of how things are going, if it's going to come out in 2020 or later. Yes, there will be game delays. So whenever Nintendo decides to announce stuff at a direct, whenever that's coming up, there will be game delays. There will be times where they're like, okay, well, maybe this would have came out this point, or we can think that maybe it would have came out in this year, but it's going to come out next year, or maybe it would have been later in the year, but would have came out earlier in the year next year. So that's going to happen. But at the same time, I still think that there's some good games slated for this year. So let's talk about that just a bit, shall we? Let's discuss some of these games that we could see. I've discussed before what I think Nintendo's going to release in 2020, but this time we're actually going to take into account kind of some of the new advancements that have happened. So I do think that, let's just start with games that we do know, right? So Bayonetta 3, that is a game that I think honestly has to be 2020. I mean, it was announced in 2017. We've gotten very few updates and no footage outside of that CG teaser trailer. Outside of that, there's been nothing on this game. Whenever they've been asked about Bayonetta 3, they pretty much just say everything's going well. Heck, they even went as far as to say when Astral Chain was being released, hey, everything's okay with Bayonetta 3, you know, it's still slated, it's still on track, you know, they're still working on it, things are good. So fans don't think the game is canceled, right? So I do feel that Bayonetta 3 is going to have a blowout this year. They're really just going to announce it, show it off, then release it in a short amount of time after it is announced. Kind of like Astral Chain, right? Astral Chain was announced and then it was released within like 6 months, right? So even though Bayonetta 3 has already been announced, because they announced it at the Game Awards back in like 2017 before Bayonetta 1 and 2 came to the Switch, I think that they're going to show it off, announce it, have a lot of footage, then bam, it comes out very shortly after it's announced. So maybe even as low as like a couple months. I think it's going to be a quick turnaround. People that love this franchise already know what it's about. They're going to pick it up. Anybody who's interested is going to see some amazing gameplay footage, and then they are going to decide whether to get it or not from that. So I think that's happening. Obviously, we still have No More Heroes 3. I think that they've been hard at work at that game. The scope and scale of that game, I don't think is as big as a game like Bayonetta 3, for example. So I think that No More Heroes, while it's going to be awesome and amazing, I think that the scope is going to be a bit small than a game like Bayonetta 3. So it will happen this year, despite them, I think, starting work on it last year or so. And No More Heroes games are always very interesting because of the structure that they have, right? They're very different from game to game, but also share some awesome similarities with the combat and fighting through the ranks and everything. With the exception, Travis Strikes Again is a little bit of a different style of game, but No More Heroes 1 and 2 in terms of how they do things. But it's going to be interesting to see if they actually take the approach of No More Heroes 1, which had like that more of like the open-ended, open world type of gameplay, whereas No More Heroes 2 didn't really focus on that, kind of focused more on like the mini games that you can do, like the retro games, and also just fighting and getting different beam katanas, dual wielding, stuff like that. So we'll see where they kind of go with that. Next up would be the Mario remasters or re-releases. I don't think these are just going to be like virtual console style. I think they're going to actually go back and touch them up, kind of add in cleaner resolutions and everything. But I do think that there is a possibility. People have talked about them being remasters, right? So you just kind of HDify them. But I do think that there's a possibility that one of them or more could be an actual remake where they went through and remade the game, added new models, added a lot more geometry, textures, new different levels, all sorts of stuff, quality of life improvements, whatever the case is. I think that game might be Super Mario Galaxy 2. I mean, I think that it's a possibility that that game is, because the rumors all kind of slate. They have Mario 64, they have Sunshine, and they have Galaxy 1 in some type of collection, and then Mario Galaxy 2 is just like nowhere to be heard of at that point. So I'm thinking that maybe they remade Mario Galaxy 2, and then you can also combine on top of that maybe something like a Super Mario 3D World along with Super Mario 3D Land. Maybe they bundle those two games together with re-releases and just kind of up the resolution for Super Mario 3D Land, but that's a 3DS game, so obviously you have to rebuild a couple things here and there. But overall, I think that that would be really hype, right? Getting all of these like super high quality Mario games that have been sporadic in their releases in terms of how Nintendo puts them out, virtual console or not, or anything like that. Sunshine has pretty much never been re-released, right? So it would be pretty cool to have these games, and I think that would be definitely big for the holiday season. I think there's a couple unannounced games too when it comes to like mystery games, right? Like games that nobody knows about that a developer is working on. Nintendo's going to just surprise us, whether it's a third-party developer or even like a game like Octopath Traveler, right? Where Nintendo is involved and does some publishing and things like that. So I do feel that it's possible for all of that. We've been wondering where Samus has been for quite some time here, and I do think that it's a possibility that we finally see Metroid Prime Trilogy HD on the Nintendo Switch. I mean, reports have had this game as far out as like 2 years ago, and I think that the only reason why we haven't seen it is because of the delays, right? The delays to Metroid Prime 4, that game being scrapped from what it was with Bandai Namco and being rebuilt or being remade with Retro Studios to kind of go back to the classic flair, right? Metroid Prime 1, 2, and 3. So I think that we could potentially see Metroid Prime Trilogy HD this year. Now, will it launch this year? I don't know, but maybe Nintendo has a direct and they showed off a fall direct or a late summer direct and they show this off. Nintendo's been known to show off some pretty crazy stuff in the later half directs, right? I know fall 2019's direct, the September 2019 direct was absolutely insane. Even like the E3 direct was really good from Nintendo. So I do think that they're going to kind of get things together, right? Now that they need some time to kind of work and see what's going on working from home, get some time to get things together, and then when they're ready or when they know what games are going to get delayed and what games are going to make 2020, they'll let us know. So it could be a pretty big info drop, but I want to expect games like Metroid Prime 4 and also with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, based on how everything's going on right here, I want to expect those games to be ready for 2020, but maybe we see some more of it, right? Maybe they give us some more gameplay footage or a teaser or something like that. So I think that's possible. But the games that I talked about, I think that'd be an okay end to the second half of the year when you have, you know, those games, combine that with some third-party stuff like The Outer Worlds, like Ninjala, games like that. Then I think it's going to be a solid 2020, but obviously hampered a bit by the pandemic that's going on, which rightfully so. Got to make sure everyone's safe and everything, and you got to adapt and kind of get things ready for how you're going to be working from home. But it's going to be interesting though. It's like, when are they going to go back to the offices, right? I mean, will it be by the end of the year? Will it be by next year? I mean, that could speed up, right? Or it could continue to slow down some things here and there. So it's going to be interesting to see how Japan kind of orders people to get back to the offices and what happens with everything going on, because this could extend for a lot longer. We just don't know how long it's going to take. But I think that 2020 is still going to be pretty good. There's going to be some nice third-party games. There's going to be some great Nintendo first-party titles, and there's going to be some cool stuff, like I said, with Bayonetta and also like No More Heroes, games like that, plus maybe a little bit more. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. So what are you guys' thoughts on Nintendo's 2020 potential, what we can see going forward? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Check out the link in the description. We have Twitter. Go and give us a follow on there. Stay up to date on all latest gaming news and information. Also, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and share this video if you can. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you for the next one. Peace.